in the Sagittarius of Gaming.
I'm blinded. So yeah, there's Portal 2, Psychonauts, and Rock of Ages. So you get first pick. Which one you want, Steve?
You know, I haven't actually played Psychonauts yet.
Oh my God.
Awesome.
Wow.
So I'll Psychonauts.
All right, done. Oh boy. So there'll be Portal 2 and Rock of Ages remaining. Okay.
All right, you ready, Ryan?
Yeah. I'm just gonna grab a random bottle of water.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, Ryan Creighton Henson. Ryan Henson Creighton.
I don't think you guys appreciate how many truth bombs Cecily just dropped into you, but oh my God, every single thing she said was like bang on and take it to heart and like tattoo it right there on your left ventricle. So crucial. My name is Ryan Henson Creighton. I'm the president and founder of this company, Untold Entertainment, Inc., which is an approximately one-man operation here in Toronto. And we scale up and down for the size of the project, I say. So we work a lot with kids broadcasters making games that support TV shows. And if those games need 5 people, we're 5. If they need 30, we're 30. Usually they only need 2, so I hire an artist and off we go. I'm going to be telling you about tools. I thought that might be interesting. How many of you have tried to make a game? And keep your hand up if you were successful. Right, no, that's about right? So about maybe like 10%, maybe 20% kept their hands up, that's good. So the people who were not successful, show of hands, was it lost interest? Was it lost money? Was it out of time? Okay, was it didn't know what the heck I was doing? Okay, interesting, very, very interesting. So this will kind of be like my kind of private, personal commentary take on a bunch of the tools that are out there. Cecily mentioned, like, you know, you can get stuck. You can reach choke points with the tool that you choose, and you can get to a spot where you just can't proceed because you don't know. Do I have to? Sweet deal. It's on password screen. I had to steal Cecily's computer. I didn't want Cecily to be the only one who had a presentation with slides, so now I've made Jim the only guy in the room who doesn't have slides. But I think she's going to have to stay here every 15 seconds and punch in her passwords. I'm not too sure. He thinks I'm not doing anything maybe. Where did the presentation go? That's weird, eh? Here, let's drop it in my Sunday. Yeah, maybe pull it to the desktop of those. Cecily Carver, ladies and gentlemen. The people who did make games, what did you use? Did you make it? No? What tool?
Tried several ones.
Okay. RPG Maker, yes. Okay, no problem. Okay.
Another one is Live Double.
Wow, you're using weirdo stuff. I've never. Okay, cool. What'd you use?
Unity.
Unity. You were successful with Unity.
Yeah, we actually have our launch party coming up.
Ah, fantastic! Congratulations. Who else? Were you making stuff? You were making stuff. What'd you use?
I use Python.
Python. Oh, interesting. Okay, cool. Was it like a like a multiplayer online kind of game? With Python?
Just for practice.
Okay, cool. For practice, what do you use?
Pygame and JavaScript.
Pygame. Oh, is that like a framework for Python that lets you make?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll talk about a couple of these, and I'll give you my from the industry what I heard kind of thing. So I mean the one that's on the tip of everyone's tongue is this program called can't even read that. What does that say? Unity. Is this really where you guys do presentations on like the weird wall with the line through them? Anyway, so Unity is both a game engine and a game tool, and it's a game framework, and it's like a runtime, right? So what this does is it's a multi-platform target thing, and we'll talk about multi-platform target things. What it allows you to do is build a game and then get it out to a bunch of different platforms and devices, which is a really, really important thing. Some of the tools that I'll be going over, you can only deploy to one target, which means you can only crank them out to iOS, or you can only put out a PC game or only a Mac game. If you're looking to do this for practice, or like Cecily was saying, just to get your first couple of games out there, sure, whatever. You know, if you crank it out so it only works on grandma's fridge on that little screen there, that's totally valid. But when you get into transition into a mode where, say, off the top of my head, you have to feed a family of 4. You really want to look at stuff that gets you up on more things than just one platform. So Unity currently will get you up on Mac, PC, possibly Linux. I'm not too sure. Linux is kind of a weird oddball there. It'll get you up on iOS, on Android, on PS3, PS4, possibly the Xbox platforms. I'm not too sure now, but they're constantly adding support. It'll get you to the Wii U, and then they just announced Unity 5, which will totally skip their plugin. They used to have a plugin for web browsers that nobody was downloading, and then you get your game into schools, and it's like you gotta go talk to the IT guy and get him to install it, right? So it was a real barrier to entry that Flash sort of overcame over the course of 12 odd years, right? So now they're just like, nah, skip it. We'll just go directly to WebGL, and we'll skip the plugin entirely with Unity 5. So now you can go directly to WebGL, which would be fantastic, of course, if everybody implemented WebGL the same way. The kinds of the games that you can make in Unity include 3D games. And you can also do 2D games as well. Now, an important thing to know about Unity, if you've never used it or never seen it before, is it is a place where you assemble all your stuff, right? So if you want sound files, you got to go make your sound files in a different tool. If you want pictures like you see on the screen, you got to go make your pictures in a different tool, right? You're not going to be doing any modeling in Unity. You can, if you're like a wizard with code, you can actually code triangles in Unity, but God, please don't do that. So what a lot of people do is, they're using an external program. They crank out an FBX or a 3ds model or something else, and everything gets brought into Unity. So Unity is sort of like the great orchestrator of your asset files, but you're not actually going to be creating assets in Unity. So it has a 2D mode as of version 4 something. It's kind of interesting. It's demonstrated here. They got this little bean character. So what you do is you split it up. You make like a sprite. This is called a sprite atlas, where all the different pieces of your characters are sort of there. And then you're able to create like a hierarchy, like the shin bone's connected to the thigh bone kind of stuff. And you're actually able to animate the different pieces. So they got this little bean, little garbanzo bean, like walking like this. And then since it's still a 3D program at heart, when you tilt your camera, you can see kind of like that Mario game where you can see like 2D goes to 3D. Oh my God! So you've got flat planes that are sort of stacked in front of each other, and then when you bring the camera around, just into an orthographic view, it looks like everything's flat, right? So that's how it treats 2D. So it's not native 2D. It's sort of tacked into the system. I haven't talked to a lot of people who've used the 2D stuff, but I hear it's pretty decent. So some of the stuff that you would actually use to create assets, to bring the assets into the software that you're using, a lot of people are using Blender because it's free as in beer. It's also bad tasting and filled with empty calories as in beer, and I hate its guts. So I'm desperately trying to find something that isn't Blender. I don't know, like I want to port back. I don't know if you guys know stuff, but the thing I'm currently looking at is a thing called Modo. They just put out a version on Steam. It's $150. Which isn't free, but it's better than having to deal with this horror. Yes, what do you got?
I don't have anything. I just have a question.
Yeah.
I'd like to know your reasons for hating Blender.
Okay. Let me tell you a story about Blender. So Blender, and I mean the current version is better than the earlier version. I started with the earlier version, right? So the earlier version, you start the program, it's big and gray, and you got this big gray square, right? The geniuses behind Blender, it used to be a paid product, and they're like, screw it, nobody's going to buy this thing, and it went free when they abandoned it, right? So then everybody started like adding on to it, House of Cards programming. So you get this big square. I'm like, this is a 3D program. What is this square supposed to be? I don't understand. Normally, all 3D programs that I've seen, I'm trained in 3D, have 4 quadrants, right? 4 viewports. You see top left, top left, bottom or right or whatever, and you see like a like a perspective view of your model, right? This no big, just boring gray square, and I did not, so okay, you click on it to maybe move it around, maybe that's an object, and it doesn't move it. It puts this weird 3D cursor thing wherever you click. It just sticks this cursor, just moves it around the screen. You're like, how do I do anything, right? I had no idea how to use this thing. So I bought a book. I bought Blender for Dummies, and man, did that book make me angry, because when it started revealing the secrets, it was like, it was like watching Lost. It was like, that's stupid. That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. So here's what you got to do to get your 4 viewports in the old version of Unity. You have to take your mouse, and you have to go to the top of the screen, and click and drag, and you're pulling down this secret pane that you wouldn't know about unless you paid the $60 for the Unity for Dummies book, right? And in this secret paint, because the whole thing of Unity is that they didn't want any modal dialogue, so they didn't want anything like, what's that?
You
Oh,
see-
Blender, sorry. They didn't want any modal dialogue, so like, are you sure you want to? And it like goes in, like modal dialogue goes in front of the stuff you're looking at. They didn't want anything blocking the stuff that you're looking at. So you pull this pane down, and there's your user options. So you go to like 4 up, and now you've got 4 viewports. I'm like, wow, I don't know why that's not default. And then you have to like save it as a default and some other weird, keystroke combination. Okay, to move stuff around, that thing actually was a cube, right? Which you only know when you see the perspective view. To move it around, to select it, you hit the right mouse button, unlike every friggin' other piece of software in the world. And to move it, you hit the G key, which stands for, grab. Oh my lord. And by that point, when I read grab, hey, all right, there goes the book, I was done. This piece of trash program. So I hate Blender, but you might dig it,
Maya's also really great.
Yeah, Maya's great. You got $4,000? I don't. I'd love to use Maya. I mean, you guys steal everything, but I kind of feel that if I'm making software for a living and I'm stealing the software I'm using to make that software, karma's gonna get me. Somehow, I don't know how I'm gonna get hit by a bus that has, Maya on the side of it or something like that. Anyway, so, the brutal thing about Maya is that it's $4,000 commercial, and they had a $2,000 thing, strangely called Maya Complete, which was incomplete, but it cost half the price. And I thought, yeah, I could sell a couple organs and maybe buy the $2,000 version. And Max, 3D Studio Max also had 3D Studio Max Full and Gmax, which was $2,000. So they were both $4,000 or $2,000, right? Then Autodesk bought Maya and owns the whole, it has a monopoly on these software now, and they killed both intro level programs. So you can't get, you can't get anything for, I guess, make the slides go faster, so Cecily doesn't have to come up here. So you can't get squat for $2,000 now, it's $4,000 or nothing, which is brutal. So Moto, $150, it's got like a 7,000 polygon limit, and you can crank it out to FBX, and I will report back when I'm here next time and tell you
I
how
can't
my
remember the
adventures
name.
went.
It's something that starts with T.
With a T.
Yeah, like I was talking to I messaged BioWare artists and stuff, and they told me
T.
I can't remember.
Anybody know 3D starts with a T? No? Neither do I don't know. There's tons of stuff out there, as we'll see. What do you do for your 2D assets? Well, I mean, a lot of people are like, oh, I got Cintiq, and I use Photoshop. Man, Photoshop's the awesomest. It's like, yeah, okay. Photoshop's great. What are you going to animate in? And some people are like, yeah, I animate in Photoshop. And I'm like, you're ridiculous, because that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. Right, so it's not an animation program. You can do animation. You shouldn't. You're probably right. You probably shouldn't. So, if you're doing cover art, if you're doing a certain style of game, if you're doing something like D-Mean's game, like the Yogg, I don't know if you know that game, but you've got a lot of static backgrounds, sure, go nuts, knock yourself out. But if you want to animate, my personal recommendation is Adobe Flash. Adobe Flash has a bad reputation, and rightly so. I've used it for 12 years, and I'm very, very angry at Adobe right now because they basically threw us all under that Maya bus, and we're, a lot of us have lost our jobs and our livelihoods over the way that they handled Steve Jobs' whole, attention everyone, flashes and cool, peace out, and then he dies, and then, the rest of So, sucks. But what else are you going to animate in, right? So, another option is Toon Boom Harmony. Is that what you were going to say?
No, I was
Some weirdo thing? What's the weirdo thing?
No, I was just going to add because
Yeah.
I thought I read that the reason behind Adobe stopping with Flash is because of HTML5 supporting Canvas now. So I'm wondering how much you would think the skills are transferable from your experience.
I'll get to HTML5. Oh, yes. I'll get there.
All
I just attended a really great presentation by the guys from Clay Entertainment. You guys know Clay? They did Shank, and they did Eats, and they did, it's a famous Clay game. Mr. Jim
Mark of the
McGinley.
Ninja?
Mark of the Ninja, yeah, if you know Mark of the Ninja. So that's Clay, they're out in Vancouver. So they did a great talk on, your stuff can look like this, or it can look like wicked sick like Mark of the Ninja stuff. So this is down to your drawing ability, not Flash's capabilities. So we're using Flash for our game Spolerium. So this is kind of one of the ways that you can do straight ahead animation if you're familiar with animation terms, where you can get on your old Cintiq and you can rock it and you can do frame by frame and then clean it up and then ink and paint. You got onion skinning, you got a bunch of great features. Or it doesn't have, one limitation is it doesn't have skeletal or bone systems, right? So Harmony does, but Harmony is a lot more expensive. That's the Toon Boom product, right? Way more pricey, but it does bones. But I talked to the Clay guys and they're like, yeah, bones, it's too limiting for us. And it's just like 3D where you got to set up a rig and you set up sort of like joint limits so that elbows can't bend backwards and stuff like that. And then if you want to get something really fluid and not something super robotic, you're a little bit more limited. Yes, sir.
I thought that Flash did have a bone tool.
You don't want to use it. Don't ever use the bone tool in Flash.
I had to use it in my program.
Pro
It's the
tip,
worst thing.
don't use it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, right? Because you can't even animate with symbols when you use it's the stupidest thing ever. Don't touch it. It doesn't exist. As far as we're all concerned, it doesn't exist. It's not a real thing. So yeah, the best way I found to do it is you draw the pieces of your character and do puppet style animation, right? So you're gonna put all the pivots, like the pivot point's gonna be here at the knees, and it's gonna be here at the thighs, and you know, the one thing though is that there's no IK, there's no inverse kinematics. So if you got a guy's arm and you want to move it like this, you go like this and just the forearm goes and everything else is hanging down here. And then you got to pick this one up and put it up here, and you got to pick the hand up and put it up here. Whereas IK, you'd be able to pull my finger, and then the whole arm would go up like that, which would be better. So, I mean, they've got 6 guys, I think, in India working on Flash right now. It's very, very sad. It's very, very sad. I mean, that's sad. I can't stay on this slide much longer. I'll get weepy. I should mention there's this great book out about Unity if you want to learn how to use it. Oh my God, I wrote it. Oh, that's horrible. But that's in its 3rd edition, and it's fantastic, and it's got lots of crude jokes that your mama won't let you read. Unreal Engine is another engine out from Unreal. You would use it if you want. I've never seen anything made in Unreal that doesn't take place in like a dank dungeon with slime and or sweat or blood dripping from the walls. Every single game seems to look the same, except for Antichamber, if you guys have seen Alexander Bruce's game, right? But he purposely like bent over backwards to make it look different. So a lot of the stuff looks really the same. You get a lot of wicked looking, effects and lighting and stuff right out of the box, but their pricing model is a lot different than Unity, and you're actually you won't have to worry about this as a beginner. A lot of schools are using this because it's just like, hey, you want to make games, look, you can put a gun in the player's hand, you can run around shooting stuff, that's all you want to do, right, fanboy, all right? And then they take your money and you go to school. But if you ever sell bunches of copies of this, they're taking like a big chunk of your profits. So as a beginner, you don't have to worry about it. My recommendation, if you're looking at Unreal versus Unity, is everybody's using Unity, and now fewer and fewer as the years go on are using Unreal. So you really want to go where the community is. Just like Flash, it's very capable at doing certain things, but you got to go where the community is. If the community's flocking away from Flash, just like they dropped Beta, even though Beta was better than VHS. I had an Amiga 500 when I was a teenager, and it was way better than like the 386, but everybody bought the 386, so my Amiga didn't have any software for it, and I cried. So, you gotta go, Jimmy's nodding, he knows, he's been there. You gotta go with what people are buying, even if what people are buying is the inferior thing. So, I'm not saying Unity is the inferior thing, but what you'll get from going to something like Unity is you're gonna get a lot more tutorials, you're gonna get a lot more people and support, and you're going to get the exact same problems that we all have with Flash right now. They're just 10 years delayed. So in 10 years, mark my words, mass exodus, everyone jumping off the ship to the next great thing, and Unity will be this gross old man with nipple hairs, and it's going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible. Apologies if you have nipple hairs right now. You're not an old person. I got nipple hairs in the brain because my daughter has one of those like Guinness Book of World Records books. And she's like, the longest nipple hair, Daddy, was 4.5 inches. How long are your nipple hairs? So, here we go, measuring my. Anyway, kids are fun. Xcode is the tool, is sort of the code editor that you're going to use if you have a Mac. You can write in their language called Objective-C, which is basically my waking nightmare. It's a horrible language, and I despise it. And if you know anything about programming, like, has anybody used this piece of garbage? No? Yeah, right. So if you know anything about programming, when you call a function, you pass in parameters, you have to type the parameters as you go into the function. I took a course, and I'm like, why are all these prefixes on like just certain function calls? And they're like, oh, that stands for next script. I'm like, what's next script? And they're like, well, back in the 80s, there were these 2 guys, then they got bought by Apple. I'm like, oh, I don't want to. So there's all this weird history, and it's like, if you haven't been a Mac guy for, since 1987, you're, Xcode. So the biggest problem, though, that I find with Xcode, aside from it being hellish, is you only get up on one deploy target, right? You're getting, 2. You're getting up on iOS, and you're getting up on the Apple Store. You want to go Android? You got a port, right? You want to get onto PC, you got a port, right? So I don't know, in this day and age, in this economy, I don't know why anybody would ever go with a technology that only deploys to one target unless they're So I would say it's an avoid. There are some frameworks, though, if you do ignore my advice and decide to go with Xcode, that'll help you out a whole lot. Everybody's using these, Cocos 2D, Corona SDK. Some people hate one, and I forget which one they hate. I think it's Corona, where you actually have to be connected to their servers to compile, which is kind of a weird thing. That's part of their licensing thing. Cocos 2D, again, it's not a language, it's a framework that helps you render graphics to the screen and flip sprite sheets and get animation stuff going.
I believe Corona is PhoneGap. Like they're.
I don't know what PhoneGap is.
It's like the commercial version, and that's like the free version or something. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And I believe there's a way to set it up to compile locally on your machines.
Oh, is there? Somebody's trying to explain PhoneGap to me, and again, it's like, well, back in '04. I'm like, I don't care about your history. I don't. C++ is just a language, and there's no tool for C++. You can write C++ in Notepad if you want to. If you hate yourself, but don't. So get any code editor or whatever. A lot of people use what's the Windows thing they're called, Jimmy? There. Yeah, Visual Studio. C++. I mean, it's like kind of a close to the metal, we call it, code, where you're down, you're actually like manipulating machine memory and stuff like that. It's way too nerdy for me. Like eggheads dig this stuff. I don't. And there are better languages now, but people are kind of stuck on it because a lot of people are using it. I don't know. It's not my bag. It's not my scene. HTML5. HTML5. Here's my story of what I'm going to do to sum up HTML5. So everyone's like, oh, Flash is dead. Steve's like, Flash is dead. Go to HTML5, right? Steve is a crafty bastard because Steve has this app store, right? And the app store is the one reason you buy an iPhone, right? Like Android stuff can do things way better, but you ever look at the Google Marketplace, and it's just like amateur hour. Like, oh my God, who made that app? Some guy's kid, right? So the store is one of the major things that's selling that device for them, and they know it very, very well. So Steve goes up there and he's like, okay, Flash is dead, and then they cancel their mobile web plugin because it's too much to maintain it for all these myriad Android devices. Steve's not going to let him on there anyway. And Steve says, oh, HTML5. HTML5 is the future. He says that even as Apple refuses to implement all the specs properly on iOS to make the stuff run in the browser well, right? So what Steve's actually doing is to keep an app store on top by preventing you from making games that properly work on mobile web, because he's a bastard, and he's dead now, and I'm happy. And I plan to visit his grave someday and do a little jig. That's super disrespectful, but fuck that guy. So here's a little story about HTML5 I'll tell from last week. So I was asking a lot of people, because we're at this fork in the road, the people who are working on Flash. Are you going to use Unity, or are you going to use HTML5? A lot of my clients are requesting HTML5 because they read the Globe and Mail and they don't know shit about nothings, right? So they read, these really, mom and dog papers. It's Joe Average, and Joe Average doesn't know things, but Joe Average is like, I heard HTML5 is the next big thing, So they're like, oh, and then they go to vendors and they're like, I've heard HTML5 is the next big thing. I read it in the Globe and Mail. So then you're stuck with kind of having to educate the client. Well, we can't do sound without like a 2-second delay on this, things like that, right? And then they go spend their money, and you build a thing in HTML5, and it's like, you can't do everything Flash does, and he's like, I warned you, and they're like, blah, so fight. So here's the story from GDC last week. Doc knowledge. So I asked this one person, and he's been using HTML5 to build games for the past few years. He's got a big shop down in Peru, and I said, so what do you think of HTML5? And he thinks for a little while, and his eyes sort of glaze over. And he says, the thing about HTML5 is, fucking sucks. Right? I'm like, so funny. Next night, I'm talking to this lady who runs a shop, and she's using HTML5. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta do this. I was talking to this guy last night, and I said, what do you think of HTML5? And he says, the thing about HTML5 is, she interrupts me, she goes, it fucking sucks. Like, right, so this is the attitude of HTML, but the people who are using it and who are making a living on it hate it. How many years do you have in your life to devote to things that you hate? Are you going to spend all day with this thing that you hate? Be my guest. I don't know. I'm not. Not for me. I know, I'm going way over time here. Sorry, Kurt. This is interesting. You might I saw this at GDC. You can actually code stuff to the Wii U using HTML5 and using their framework that they're going to give you. Nintendo used to be a lot more strict. You used to have an office with a locked door. You still have to have a locked door, but now it can be like in its cellar, so you don't have to be so pro. But the reason why that is because nobody owns a Wii U. So you're gonna, again, it's the one deploy target problem, right? You're gonna build with their framework for their crummy system that nobody owns, and very few people will see your game. So just keep that in mind. It might be like, ooh, I'm working with Nintendo, but nobody knows. Nintendo's bankrupt next week. Game Maker, Cecily mentioned it. I've never used it, so I don't know a whole lot about it, but I know it has multiple deploy targets. I know that it has drag and drop code if you're a beginner, and then you can switch to typey code if you're like, I'm super pro now. So that's something if you're a little bit scared of code. When I started with Flash, I didn't know code either. I got a job as a game developer, and they're like, make a game, and they had drag and drop code at that point. And so the drag and drop code really helped me. I learned to program on the job. Game Maker, cool. Somebody mentioned RPG Maker.
One interruption
Oh,
with
yeah.
Game Maker is they just announced, I
Yes.
don't know how much it costs, but basically you can get on the PlayStation with Game Maker.
Oh, interesting.
And Unity's cost for a PlayStation license, they don't really list it. So Game Maker, in terms of multi-platform, is actually trumping Unity right now.
So you think they made like a better deal with them?
I couldn't believe Game Maker of all things
Mhm.
would even support that.
Well, this was the thing when they were targeting. You could get up on the Wii with Unity, and so they're listing the prices for iOS and Android for their extensions to get up on that, and then they're like, Wii, call us, right? So I actually talked to a dude and went, all right, so how much is it to have your extension to get on the Wii? He was like, it's $10,000. And everyone's like, oh, you can get on the Wii with Unity. Well, good luck getting the $10,000 to do it. And he said they actually had to reduce that cost to $8,000 because people couldn't make $10,000 on their game on the Wii. Interesting. That was on their digital marketplace. RPG Maker. So the same thing is going to hold true for RPG Maker as it will for Game Maker. You might look at it and go like, yeah, I can make a game as long as it looks like Bud, as long as it looks like Final Fantasy circa 1992. But interestingly, people are using it, and there's a lot of tech snobbery that goes around. They're like, oh, you're using Flash, oh, you're using RPG Maker, you're not using C++, you must be less of a human being. But I mean, ever hear of Hotline Miami? Oh, Game Maker, right?
That's great.
I don't know if you've heard a game called Always Sometimes Monsters. This thing, RPG Maker. Actual Sunlight, is that what, or To the Moon? To the Moon? To the Moon. RPG Maker, right? And which?
Actual Sunlight.
Actual Sunlight. Okay, so those two games, which were, I don't think they made a bundle, but they're critically acclaimed. Actual Sunlight's on Steam. To the Moon just got on Steam. So you can get where you want to be. You can get into the big marketplaces, even using the tech that people, dump on. So don't beat yourself up over the tech that you decide to use too much. The one caveat is that, I'm trying to put my game on Steam right now, and with fewer people using it, there are fewer people I can ask for help because I'm not a super technical guy, right? So, weigh that out. If you're using Unity, everybody's using it, and you can find a million people to help you do the things you need to do. This is Adventure Game Studio. If you want to make a point-and-click adventure, again, a number of pro games are made with Adventure Game Studio, even though it looks like kind of a non-pro program. You might laugh at this. This is a program called Scratch. It's intended for small children, but they use it in like first-year comp sci at Harvard, I believe. So come on. The great thing about this is, you remember Cecily was mentioning that a lot of programs extract how they do code, right? So they'll all have ways of doing loops, and they'll all have ways of doing conditional statements. So the same is true for Scratch, and that's what Flixel actually, not Flixel, Stencil is actually based on. Thank you. But what's great about it is it's drag and drop, and although you won't be able to produce anything that you can put on a platform that grandma and all your friends will be able to play, you will be able to use it to figure out some of the principles of code. So if you're really scared of that stuff, you'll be able to figure out how a loop works and how variables work. And then when you see it again in maybe Game Maker or Unity or something, you'll be like, oh, that's like the shiny bunny icon that I used in Scratch. That's not so scary. Why don't they put shiny bunnies on it in every program? I'm just rushing a bit here because I'm talking too long. Game Salad, Cecily mentioned, I've never used it. Hit it. Hit it. What's the 1 minute Game Salad?
It's all drag and drop code. It's beginner friendly. It's free. And I think it has iOS support out of the box. I think.
I agree, but I think it's not. I think they take a cut of your sales if you use it.
Yeah.
So you can make an iOS thing, but they're taking that. And they have, what's neat is they have a lot of templates. So if you want to do like, I want to do the 2D platformer, it's like, cool. You want dinosaurs? You're like, no, I want aliens. Okay, draw an alien. Whee! So that's how that works. Twine, Cecily covered it pretty thoroughly. That's what it looks like up there. when you're a user and that's a player. That's what it looks like when you're a developer. And again, as Cecily mentioned, you can CSS and HTML the fudge out of this thing. You can add graphics to it, animations. You can do everything you can do in HTML5 by adding on top of whatever you create in Twine. But if you're not savvy like that, you can start just by producing your own kind of like choose your own adventure kind of thing. And then, you know, one last thing I should mention is you can paper prototype a game. You can get out components from board games you already know. You can get out clay, you can get out markers, you can get out paper. This is how I started back in the late 80s. There's old man's going to talk about the 80s. Back in the late 80s, everything was locked, and dads were the key, right? So it was the nerdy dudes in the 80s who could tell you how to program and buy the computers and which nerds. And I didn't have a dad in my life, and I didn't have men in my life who could unlock the secrets of programming for me. I would buy a book, and I'd type the program from the book, and I'd make a mistake, and the thing wouldn't compile. And I don't even know what compiling is, and I don't know how to troubleshoot it. So a lot of the arcane knowledge was locked to me. So I did this. I made my games on paper with scissors, goddammit. And you know, I had my friend play it, and I didn't know what I was doing. But this is a very valid way to do things. If you're not quite savvy, you're just getting up to stuff, get some clay. And that will conclude what I have to say to you. Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, Jimmy, do you have slides?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, he doesn't have slides. Sorry, I forgot. Not meaning to rub it in or nothing, but...
Thank you, Ryan. That was really good. It's really good that you mentioned all those tools because, you know, as the gaming team, we use a lot of those tools. I've used Unity for the past year, and I know that we're making a collaborative game at the GMU, and we're using Unity currently right now as well.
How do you find it works with collaborating? I heard bad things.
Yeah, it
Are you
works.
sharing files? Do you guys have the asset server? Or?
It works. Dante actually is our director of that game.
Version control is like a paper shredder for our files.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard.
Yeah.
Baby steps.
But we're making progress, right?
Yeah.
They're only on version 5. They're only charging $75 a month. Okay, next one.
So we're going to do another raffle. This is again for a family discount card, courtesy of the Yorkdale Microsoft Store, and a Steam game, courtesy of Ian. So Matthew, will you pick a ticket?
Oh,
If anybody wants to buy a ticket throughout the shift and throughout the night, feel free to go to Matthew.
Can someone do drum roll, please? Alright, the winner is 526241. 526241.
Anybody?
I haven't seen anyone leave the room. What's going on?
Thank you.
What? How did you? That's impossible. Are you guys reading off the tickets you didn't sell? What's going on? Okay. How did you?
Okay. We want to be fair so somebody else can win.
Alright, so I'll do it again.
Fine. If it happens again, you can take it. But
Alright, up.
Jordan draws.
526236.
oh,
Yay!
In your voucher, I guess.
Right. So we do have Ian's left our what? Portal 2 and Rock of Ages.
Yes.
Okay. So which one would you
Well,
like?
I have Portal 2 ready, so I have pages.
Rock of Ages. Okay. All right. Great.